Hello everyone, welcome to MMA Podcast Series 2025. I'm your host Amit Thakur, Managing Partner, Wavemaker at WPP Media. 2025 was a year that went by with a rapid evolution and bringing in multiple trends, right? And we see that 2026 is not going to be any shorter. We forecast that 2026 is going to be equally exciting across businesses, categories, and consumers continue to evolve, and how brands and marketers observe these trends and what it holds for us in 2026 is what the series is going to unlock. To start this first session today, I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome our first guest, Mr. Mohinder Jakhar, Marketing Director, Pernod Ricard for Vietnam and Cambodia. Welcome, Mohinder.
Thank you, Amit. Very happy to be here.
Great. So, Mohinder, when we have this session with Pernod Ricard and with you, I cannot imagine a better time to do this session over a wonderful glass of scotch. But yeah, let's keep it sober for our audiences. Yeah. And we'll look forward to, discussing the trends specific to industries and in general and see what holds for 2026, right?
Great. Happy to be here. And as you said, I think 2025 has been exciting in a lot of ways and also one which maybe added a lot bit more to my gray hair. But I hope 2026, will be equally exciting and less troublesome.
Great. So on that note, why don't we start with knowing a little more about you? How has been your journey in Vietnam? How long have you been here?
Okay.
And prior to that, what has been your journey and experiences?
Okay. So the way I love to describe myself is I'm an engineer who somehow ended up in marketing. So I've been in Vietnam for slightly more than 1 year now, and I find I've fallen in love with this amazing country, the vibrant people, the food, the places. I've been to quite a few places so far, and I just simply love them. And before coming to Vietnam, I've been with Pernod Ricard for almost 19 years now.
And that's a long journey.
Yes. And I've worked across a lot of markets. So before Vietnam, I was in Thailand and then handling Thailand and Myanmar. And before that, I was in Hong Kong, looking after innovation for Asia, so covering a lot of markets. Actually, that's the first time I was exposed to Vietnam almost 10 years ago. And I've seen
the full circle back now in Vietnam.
Yes. So, and before that, I started my journey in India. So I joined Pernod Ricard as a management trainee long time back.
Nice.
And then worked in sales, then worked in marketing. And then in between, I diverged and then worked in Colgate-Palmolive and Agile as well. But then came back home, and Pernod Ricard has been home for the last 15 years now.
Awesome. I think that's definitely sounding like an inspiring journey, Mohinder. And I can imagine a lot of people that we know and what we were chatting before the session, common acquaintances. And a journey has been quite similar and quite challenging, right? And the fact that you have been at multiple markets, managed regional and market roles, gives you a holistic view of things, right? And in fact, to connect the dots, our journeys, again, what we spoke were very similar, right? So again, the common factor of being an engineer, but landing into advertising and media and marketing. And that's been our journey for the last 20 years as well for me, from India to Indonesia, Malaysia, and now in Vietnam. And absolutely agree with you that this is one of the best places that we can have wonderful food, ambience, and work and live with wonderful people.
I completely agree.
Great. So with that, let's deep dive into our session today. And what we would first want to understand from you, Mohinder, how 2025 has been for you, especially from your business, your industry.
Okay.
And then a little more to understand from you in terms of what consumer trends in general that you observe or that impacted the businesses here in Vietnam.
Okay. So actually, 2025 has been kind of an evolution that we've seen over the last 2-3 years. So the explosion of consumption that we saw after COVID, when people were in lockdown for a great period of time, and then they came out and then they wanted to consume everything, everywhere, all at once. So there was a boom that the entire industry saw in 2022 and 23. And then after that, we started seeing a little bit dip. And what we have observed in 2025 is, I think, a lot of challenges coming together at the same time. We had the global challenges from the war on tariffs that's happening, the tariff wars that happening with China raising tariffs on European products and American products, America putting tariffs on products from Europe. And a company like Pernod Ricard, with our manufacturing footprint and our commercial footprint all over the world, it raised a lot of challenges. We were struggling to find new sources to minimize the impact of tariff. At the same time, how do we ensure that our consumers don't feel the pinch for the tariffs? So that was a challenge. Then we also saw a dip in consumer optimism. I'm sure it was seen across most industries. The consumers were a bit more hesitant in going out and spending, so discretionary incomes were down. So they were spending more on the essentials, and the discretionary items were taking a bit of a hit. So that also had an impact. And then finally, this whole Gen Z versus the millennials challenge, that is the Gen Z having the same kind of behavior as the past generations, or are they different? I think we are now getting closer to finding some answers to that.
Great.
So, and that, we'll share.
Perfect. So great. I think that's a wonderful sharing, right? And what you touched upon is interesting because 2025 was truly a year of tariffs. I think a large part of our lives were impacted, multiple markets that all originated from the US. And therefore, for a global company such as yours, these tariffs have differential impact on different markets, right?
Yes.
And also in each of these markets, the life stage or the consumer stage is different. So coming from a background where you have managed multiple roles in markets and even regional, how do you see those also getting impacted or impacting your business?
So what it has forced us to do is that we have to become very agile about our manufacturing and sourcing footprint.
Okay.
So while for some products we have geographic indicators, so they have to be produced. So Scotch has to come from Scotland, Cognac has to come from Cognac region of France, Champagne has to come from Champagne region of France. So there are certain brands which we cannot move. Jameson has to come from Ireland. But then there are certain products where we have a bit more liberty of having distributed footprint.
Okay.
So what we are doing is that for products where we don't have a choice, we have been trying to minimize. So we have been absorbing some of the inflation in the cost of goods and logistics, and trying to minimize the impact on the consumer. For products where we could have shift our footprint around, so we are doing that. But it has also forced a rethink in our sourcing strategy.
Correct.
So now we are trying to be closer to our, let's say, markets plus sources of growth. So, for example, Southeast Asia is a future source of growth. Markets like Vietnam or Philippines, with their very young, dynamic economies, consumers who are moving up very fast, a middle class that is developing very fast. So we realize that we need to be closer to these markets.
Awesome. Yeah. So, and that very wonderfully then lends into our second point that we want to discuss, right? Therefore, with this young setup at a market level that you spoke about for Vietnam and Philippines, for example, what are been the key observations of how their behavior has been, more from a consumer lens and also specific to your industry?
I think Vietnam has one of the youngest median ages in Southeast Asia. It's growing a bit older, but along with Philippines, I think it's still quite a young nation. And I remember in our conversation that you've been in Vietnam for almost 8-9 years.
That's right.
And I used to come to Vietnam around 2016. So one of the biggest changes that I have seen in Vietnam is that, especially when it comes to our category, alcoholic beverages, that Vietnam was a very, very beer-focused market. I remember coming here 10 years ago, and there were those, beer gardens with big speakers and lights, and everybody's having a party out there.
And the voices of Mo Haiba.
Yes, and Mo Haiba, everywhere. So while the spirit is the same, but I see that behavior is changing. One of the biggest changes that I've seen is that the younger generation, I call it mindful consumption.
Okay.
That they are much more mindful of what they consume and how they consume and where they consume. So one of the core needs that, our brands, our products and our environment satisfy is what we call bond and connect. Meeting your friends or colleagues after work and then sharing a drink and then being able to get to know them better. So that's one of the core needs. And earlier that need was being met through beer and through those loud places. But now what I've seen in the last year or maybe last couple of years in Vietnam especially, it's accelerating, is that the younger consumers, they are finding more space for spirits in their bond and connect moments than beer.
Okay.
And the occasion is shifting to more of the what we call Western bars. So, places which are offering a more Western environment and an experience. And the drinks experience is also more refined, more cocktails, more crafted cocktails, good looking cocktails. So for me, that mindful consumption, so consumers are drinking less, focusing more on the experience and the social part of it. So, I've seen that in a few places where the cocktails look very beautiful. They spend 30 minutes taking 100 photos and posting them all over the social media. So that's also part of the experience, that you have the experience and then you share it also. So that's, I think, one of the core things that I've seen.
So that's quite interesting what you just shared, right? And there are few things which almost brings about like a trend that has been going on. So while beer continues to be the leader, right? There is an increasing trend that you're saying in certain audiences where spirits are becoming popular, especially this younger audiences, as you mentioned. And this whole part of experience, and experience is actually a combination of multiple elements, right? So not just the drink or the product, but where are you placed, where are you seated, who are you with? And then of course the whole aspect of social media for the young generation.
Exactly.
So that's great. And you see these trends happening recently, or these has been growing in past 1 year or 2 years?
I think this is accelerating now. So while the let's say the cocktail bars or the Western bars, there were quite a few of them, but they were not finding a stronghold. They were being run more on passion than on business. But in the last 2 years, we have seen that explosion. It's mostly focused, let's say, still Ho Chi Minh is the leading center for that. But when you go to Hanoi, I can name a few bars over there which are leading in terms of the creativity, the craftsmanship, the skills, even the concept of the bars. It's amazing.
I'm going to surely pick you up for the list of these places in Ho Chi Minh. But I think again, what has been therefore your take while these trends are evolving? How have your brand pegged for growth, leveraging some of these trends in 2025 already?
So what we have done is that, if I can add a bit of context, Vietnam has been a very high-end market for spirits in the past.
Okay.
So, because Tet gifting is the biggest driver for our brands, and it's a very high-end market. So in the past, we were very focused on the upper end of the market, while we have a world-leading portfolio, let's say at what we call premium and super premium price points. Our brands like Absolute, Jameson, Beefeater, Havana Club, which are globally iconic brands, but they were very small, or we were not focusing on them in Vietnam.
Okay.
So what we have done now in the past 1.5 years is that we have created a separate vertical where we are focusing on these products. But at the same time, we also realize that it's educational journey for the bartenders and the consumers as well. So what we are also doing along the same time is that we are working with the bartending community, engaging with them to elevate their skills and their knowledge. So we are running our Supernova program, which is a program where we work with the bartenders one is to do master classes and elevate their skills. Plus, we also expose them to global bartenders. So we are bringing bartenders from other countries. We are taking the leading bartenders from Vietnam to other countries, so that there is a transfer of skills through that.
That's a wonderful effort, right? For a company like yours to build brand through not just pull of the consumer, also through a push that you leverage the bartender skills.
Yeah, right.
So it was absolutely wonderful talking to you, Mohinder. And some of the things that I also learned today is the fact that your industry has been evolving rapidly. And what we saw in 2025 was selective premiumization and moderation and mindful consumption, right? And with that, you have started to look forward to 2026, where people are moving more to experiences. And I think the whole game of managing a portfolio, bringing alive new experiences through product innovations, flavors is the game forward for 2026.
Yeah.
And we know that consumers, as we also discussed, that Vietnam is equally dynamic in nature, both from a lens of how consumers are evolving at different age groups, at different segments of premiumization in terms of wealth that they acquire, plus people at the broader segment, at the mass segment, and how behaviors are different at these levels, and how brands are actually rapidly managing their portfolios to cater to these different sets of audiences, right? Look forward to having this chat conversations, outside our podcast, and I would definitely connect back to you. Let's get out of this place to experience some of the Pernod wonderful products that you have to offer in the current market.
Definitely. I look forward to taking you to share a fall cocktail with you.
Absolutely. That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, Amit. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the MMA 2025 podcast with me, Amit Thakur. Stay tuned for the next episode coming over to you soon.